my two deferments came up, and in 1952, Uncle Sam said, "No more deferments for you, brother. We want you," right? And so they sent me my greetings, right? And even though I was a draftee, it has its privileges. I didn't have service much time because I was in a combat area of Korea, so I rotated on points. I came home with 44 points, and that gave me about 1 year, 9 months, and 14 days of service, okay, in the Korean conflict here. So the war was 1950 to 1954. That's what happened in Korea. And I served from September of 1952 to 1953, September of 1953, at which time I had enough points to come back home, and figuring, well, that was the end of my duty. And much to my surprise, Uncle Sam said, "No, you're not through yet, right? We're going to put you in the reserve." So I was in 2 years of active reserve and 4 years of inactive reserve, okay? So my honorable discharge said 1960 is when I actually was completely through with my service with the United States Army, okay? But again, I had no regrets. I'm here to talk to you today, and I'm sort of proud to have served my country, really. And what I've seen over there is what I'm going to talk about today. And some of the things that I like to refer to it as the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? There's a movie out on that. Clint Eastwood was a star in that movie. But I like to refer to it as that. Everyone thinks of the Korean War as a police action. In modern times today, they say, "Oh, well, what was that? That was a police action, right? That was a conflict. That wasn't a war." That was a war, gentlemen. That was a war. In a short period of time in Korea, 36,000 people, troops, were killed, injured, slaughtered. We had the Chinese Reds come over the line. They came over in droves, right? They looked like ants from a distance. You couldn't stop them, right? They came over left and right. Now, my outfit was the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion, all right? That was a cannon mounted on a track. It's a 155 self-propelled howitzer. It had a diameter tube of about 10 inches, and the length of that tube was enough for 3 soldiers, including myself and 2 South Koreans, to ride on, okay? And we rode on that quite often because I was an ammo corporal, okay? And my job was to set the detonators in these projectiles inside a pit, okay? And inside the pit, we would have 3 types of sets of detonators. One was a quick incendiary, all right, which would explode and fire would result as a result of the impact. A delayed action, which meant that once we fired, the enemy would think, well, that's a dud, and about 2 minutes later the thing would explode, okay? So we've set those, and immediate impact. Now, my outfit, the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion, okay, was located about 1 mile behind the front lines. We were called upon by the 1st Marine Division, the Navy's 1st Marine Division, the 24th Infantry Division, the 82nd Airborne Division, for support. Anytime they wanted support and they wanted an offensive going on, they would call us for a fire mission. There were many, many nights that we slept in our bunkers with our clothes on and our boots all tied, and that bell rang for us to get to our guns at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to fire all night long, right? Get back to our bunkers about 8 in the morning, an hour or two of sleep, and then get up and start firing again, okay? Well, I'm a little ahead of myself here. I'm just going to start here. I arrived in Korea from Japan. I landed in Incheon, okay? I came from Seattle, Washington, where I was shipped to Japan by boat, 21-day boat ride to Japan. And then in Japan, they shipped us to Incheon. That was a little boat ride from Japan to Incheon, which was only about a week compared to the 21-day boat ride. On the 21-day boat ride from Seattle, Washington, however, to Japan, we were on a troop ship, and we had bunkers to sleep on about 4 high. And I, lucky enough, would have the top bunker, right? So I would have to have that ladder to climb up. And it's all I kept seeing was the ceiling like inches away from me, you know? And lucky enough that we survived that one too. Back in Japan, we did well, and they prepared us for Incheon with information on what we were going to do and where we were going to go and so on down the line. Once we got to Incheon, it was late at night, about 8 o'clock, I should say early at that time, and they transported us by a deuce-and-a-half truck with about 24 of us inside this truck, 2.5-ton truck, and they traveled all around these mountains. It took us about 4 hours to get to our destination. At that time, it was called Kumwa Valley. That's where we were located. That's where our outfit was set up. And the fellows there were so glad to see us, you know, because there was new blood coming in here, and we were sort of saddened ourselves, more saddened. I think we were more scared than anything else. Sitting on that truck, driving for 3 hours to get to Kumwa, we're looking up at the sky, and we're looking at all of these firecrackers going on, all these fireworks that they have, and the sergeant next to us said, "Fellas, that's not fireworks. That's tracer bullets up there, you know? And you don't want to get in the way of any of those, right?" And so it's the first time we've ever seen anything like that happen up in the sky. So anyway, we got to our area in Kumwa Valley around there midnight, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we got to these tents. All of these tents were there. And so, I don't know, quite a few of them, because we had quite a convoy go up in trucks from the ship here. And we were assigned a cot, and naturally we were all tired from the ride and transportation. But the next morning, we decided to take a shower. So we asked some of the sergeants in charge there, where's the showers around there? It's right there. You guys carry them with you. What do you mean? You see these steel pots that you have, these helmets? That's your shower, right? We have a pot-belly stove here. You put some water in it, you heat it up, and you shower. You bathe yourself that way. So that's what we did, right? Brush your teeth the same way, you know. Everything was done out of that steel helmet. Well, anyway, that same afternoon, we were assigned to our 155 self-propelled howitzers. And I've never seen such big monsters in all my life. Now, I was trained in Arkansas, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, on basic training on a 105 howitzer, a small howitzer, all right? not on tracks. It's a manual type howitzer. And we were able to take it apart sometimes and put it together again. But not these 155s. These were mounted on giant steel tracks, and the tubes, as I told you before, were enormous, right? And we were assigned to one of the outfits there. I was in B Battery of the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion. We had A, B, and C batteries. And our battalion, all right, this is our battalion, 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion, was made up of three batteries, gun batteries, a service battery, a headquarters battery. And that's our whole entire battalion at that point. Now we had 8 of these 155 self-propelled howitzers to each battery. So altogether, my 92nd had 24 guns in this battery, in this 92nd battalion. And we were called upon many times to give them support whenever it was called for. Well, after about 4 months in Korea, and of course I was assigned to an ammo corporal immediately when I did get there from Incheon into the tents and then into the battery. I was an ammo corporal doing this detonator setting, and what happened is this. Let me explain to you what we did besides setting the detonators. Okay, I had 2 South Koreans working with me in this pit. This pit was about 4 feet deep, and it was boarded by 2x4s with sandbags all around it, in case the enemy shelled us, so we would be a little protected by shrapnel. Okay, so what we did, I set the detonators, and I would call up one of the fellows working with me, South Koreans, and we would pick up this 95-pound Brojo, put it on a tray, lift it up, put it on the top of the shelf, right, on top of the little bunker that we had where we store these projectiles. And then the fellas on the guns would come over, 2 of them would come over, pick it up, and the breech would be open on the 155, and they would put the projectile inside the tube, and then another person would come by with a powder keg and put that in, and then the fellow that's on the lanyard would lock the breech, lock it tight, and he'd be the guy that pulls the lanyard that explodes that Projo into enemy lines. We could travel with these Projos 5 to 6 miles into enemy territory. That's how far they could go. When you jacked up the tube to go high at a high distance, they would go about 5 or 6 miles. When you drop them a little lower, okay, then it would be a direct hit if they called for it. Whatever they called for, we would do it. They would give us their coordinates, and we would do it on our 155. Well, anyway, all these things are good so far. The bad thing that happened one day is the fellow I was good friends with, this Angelo Finelli, I'll never forget his name, from New York City, right? I was good friends with him. He was the lanyard puller on my 155. And we're talking one day after 4 months, and he says, you know, I wouldn't mind leaving here now. A lot of fellas just couldn't take it. I can see why a lot of fellas have this PTS, you know, post-traumatic syndrome, okay? I played a lot of sports in high school, all kinds of sports, and I think that physically helped me out through basic training and through what I went through in Korea, all right? Somebody upstairs was looking after me, I'll tell you. But anyway, what happened to this poor Angelo Finelli, okay? Talking about going home. I would like to get, and see, you can't talk about yourself. and wish upon yourself for something, because it can happen. He wished that he would get $1 million injury to send him home. Nothing serious, just enough to send him home so he could get compensation from the government, all right, and get him out of Korea. All right? Well, one day, he pulled the lanyard, okay, and sure enough, it backfired. And Angelo Finelli's leg came off with the backfire of that breach. Now, we found that what happened is he did not lock that breech when he fired that lanyard. Now, whether it was a mistake, or human error, or whether it was on purpose, I don't know. But this poor Angelo Finelli did not have, he went home all right with one leg. Right? So you can't wish upon yourself something like that, because things can happen. People say to themselves, even today, oh, I don't know, I'm disgusted with life and all this business, right? I wish I was dead, you know? You don't say that. You don't ever say that, right? Life goes on. You make the best of it. You fight and keep alive. That's my theory. Well, Angelo Finelli got his, and by the way, every time they fired that lanyard, when everything was working properly, that noise was so great. We didn't have earmuffs in that pit where we were located. We had our fingers to block our ears, right? Maybe that's why I'm hard of hearing nowadays, you know? It's catching up to me. Well, at my age, maybe that is too. But anyway, one or the other, it's happening. But I got the VA, thank God, and I got a few hearing aids that I put in every so often. That helps a little bit, so that works out good. But anyway, I'm thankful for that too, all right? And I'm thankful that I didn't wish anything like Mr. Angelo Finelli did. But that's what happens in these projos, in these pits here. Everything is with sandbags. I can remember another incident where we're filling sandbags in Korea. Mind you, I was 23 years old, right, when they drafted me. Now, they had to draft me because the age limit for stopping the draft was 25. The government was getting scared that I was getting older and I wouldn't be drafted. So that's why they grabbed me and said, the heck with this guy's furlough, his extension of schooling, right? We want him now. So that's why they took me at age 23. I was married at the time. Married at the time to my first wife, and who passed away years ago. And I was in the service in Korea, and still married, and 23 years of age. But anyway, what happened one afternoon, we were filling sandbags, and what it is in the wintertime, it gets awful cold over there. Mr. Ed Correa and myself were talking about the cold weather coming off that river out there. It gets wicked cold. But anyway, we were filling sandbags, and it was amazing. I mean, I was in pretty good shape there. I was 175 at that time, and got through with basic training. I mean, they really built muscles in me at that point. But that's why I could lift these 95-pound projos with no problem at all. But we filled sandbags in the coldest weather in T-shirts, right? In T-shirts, we were filling sandbags. Snow on the ground. We dug holes, we dug latrines, all right? When there was snow on the ground, we went from one latrine to another latrine, and we dug them. We had to do them. This is our 8-gun battery. And we did that in the wintertime besides. It got cold, but I don't know how we survived it, but we did. Now, these sandbags, where we stood, where we lived, were bunkers. These are bunkers that we stood. And I remember telling you just a little while ago that they called us out in the middle of the night to fire these guns all night long and so on. Well, they called us out from our bunkers. And these bunkers, in case you don't know where the bunker is, any of you, it's a built-up 2x4 with plywood and sandbags piled high along the sides and top, okay, on top of these bunkers. And this is where we stood. We had a potbelly stove inside and a little stovepipe to come up, and so on down the line. But these bunkers were our homes for quite a while. Now, the sandbag part of it was the bad part, right? In the wintertime, filling in all these details for the trains, too. But the good part is yet to come. One afternoon, we were through with our fire missions, and we had formed a softball league, right? Believe it or not, a softball league at Korea, of all the batteries that we had. And one afternoon, we were playing a softball game. We figured it was nice and quiet. We weren't getting shelled at the time. So we were playing this game, and it kept going right along, and we were doing very well. Then finally, the score was, I wrote down here the score of the game, which was 2-1. 2-1. This was a 2-1 game. And my team was in the lead. We only played 7 innings, okay? And the other team was up, and this was the last of the 7th inning. So if we could hold them, we would win this game, right? But sure enough, the enemy started dropping some shells on us. We had whistling sounds all over our head, right? And crazy nuts like we were, we didn't give a damn. We kept playing that softball game until the commanding officer got on the microphone and said, "You crazy bunch of nuts, right? If you don't get off that field, I'm going to send the MPs down and get you off that field. Now you guys get in your foxholes immediately, if not sooner." And after that announcement, we did. We left, and we jumped in our foxholes, and our foxholes were all covered on each side with sandbags too, all right, to prevent sharpness from coming in. Well, anyway, they weren't very nice, these North Koreans at the time, shelling us, right, because they kept it up. They kept it up for a good hour and a half to 2 hours, and by that time, darkness set in, and the game was called anyway, and my team did win 2-1, right? But thank God, darkness set in. But we were playing softball with those shells whistling by. But we didn't care. We wanted to play the game. You know why? Because we were so used to hearing that sound, and so far we've been lucky. We didn't get hit when we heard that sound. We figured it wasn't going to hurt us now either. But you never know. So the commanding officer did say, "Get out," right? Okay, so we did that, and we finished up our softball game. Well, anyway, half of it. And another thing that happened, a bad thing that happened too, was the time we used to go to chow. It was between 4:30 and 6:30. But don't you think the enemy knew the time that we used to go to chow with our mess gear to where the bunker was, where we used to eat, right? And the cooks had everything ready for us, right? Don't you think they knew our time because they were shelling us for many, many days at that time, and we spent many days in the foxhole without having any chow supper at all, right? So what happened is they tried to change the time for dinner so that would throw them off a little bit, and they did, so we helped out there. We started eating regularly after about maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, after smartening up a little bit, changing the time around. But they knew when we went to chow. I don't know how, but they did. The other bad thing was pulling guard duty. Every bunker, every battery, A, B, and C, all right, all had to do guard duty up on this big Korean hill, a graveyard. It's a graveyard. You know, you don't mind it during the daytime, but when you get up there and that wind cuts through you in the wintertime, and it's cold, we have our Mickey Mouse boots, these Mickey Mouse hats, and layers, double layers of long underwear, but still that wind used to cut right through you. It was unbelievable. Now, we were assigned 32 caliber submachine guns, these rifles, these semi-automatic rifles. And it had about a 16 bullet clip, right, that we had. So that came with us up at guard duty. And every time we did go up there, you know, everyone would have 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and change the duty and so on. We would get up there and the word was, halt, who comes here? The password. And you'd have to give the right password, and you've got that carbines facing towards that person, that's for sure. And if they didn't, you fire, or else you would get shot, you know. But thank God when somebody else came up to relieve you, okay? And then somebody else's turn to go up. But that was scary. So I mean, one night I was up there, and it was windy and cold. I thought I heard Korean languages from the graveyard talking to each other. You know, it's imagination, but I'm saying, oh my God, where's my relief? Another hour coming? I hope they get up here a little earlier. God, is that scary. But anyway, that was a bad thing. Another ugly thing that happened, one of the ugly things that happened, was our master sergeant was going home, all right? He had 1 week to go on points. He had 44 points. And the day before he was going to leave, his bunker got a direct hit from the enemy. Destroyed that bunker, unbelievable. And that master sergeant was no more. 1 day before he was ready to go home. That was awful. Everybody felt so sad about that. Another ugly thing that happened was after about 4 months in Korea myself, we pick up our unit, the cannon on the tractor, and we change locations sometimes. We go to a different location. Sometimes it might be near, we used to call it Jane Russell Hill. There was a hill over there called Jane Russell. Why? Because if you looked at the mountains in front of you, there was 2 big curves. They took like big moves, right? And Jane Russell was noted for having 2 big moves like Dolly Parton. So we called that Jane Russell Hill at that time. So we were stationed out there for a while, and so on down the line. There was another area which was called Pork Chop Hill in Korea too. That was another one where a lot of fellas got massacred over there and by the Chinese Reds, I believe. They're the ones that came over, and that did it until the 1st Marine Division picked up and then started wiping them out. But again, they asked for our reinforcement, and we helped them out too, all right, with our 155, with our 95-pound Rodos. Now, when we did take a road march to change to another location, I was riding, this personally happened to me, I was riding on this long tube of this cannon, and the 2 South Koreans that helped me, all right, in the ammo pit, right? One was in front and one in back, and I was in the middle. And we were coming down, this fella from Mississippi was driving the tank. I'm on the right side, and we're coming down a big giant hill, and all these hills, by the way, you wonder how you can even drive on these things. You look on the side and you got like 6 inches before there's a giant drop, you know? It scares the heck out of you. You gotta be able to handle those things. And our big giant tanks were just enormous. But anyway, coming down this hill with the 3 of us on that long cannon, right? Mr. Ferguson pulls the lever to make a right curve. And lo and behold, a big giant boulder sticks out from the right side of the mountain. And we hit that with our tank. And as it did, our tank tipped sideways. One of the Koreans, that was with me, the one in the back, was lodged between the tank and the side of the mountain. I mean, it was an awful sight to see. Completely worn out, blood coming from everywhere, crushed to death. The one in front of me flew down the road. He had a punctured liver, and Jack landed on his helmet, direct hit on his helmet, maybe about 10 feet from in front of the tank. And the tank was on its side, ready to tip over, and I'm looking at it. I said, you better not tip over now. But I had a big dent in my helmet, okay? And I got up. Again, being physically fit helped me, right? Maybe it was the sports that I played in high school or what it was, but somebody up there was looking after me. I got up, and first thing I went to was my mouth. I felt my teeth. I said, oh my God, have I got any teeth left? Felt numb, and everything was fine. So a half-track come by, one of the fellows here from Service Battery, and he says, hey, soldier, you're bleeding. I said, bleeding? Where? I said, I got no blood in your leg. He said, I had a big gash on the side of my leg. Right? I didn't feel it. There was a big gash went through my double long underwear and my fatigues and the whole bit. He said, come on, we're going to take you to the hospital. I said, no. I don't need no hospital. I just put a couple of Band-Aids on it or something. Forget it. I don't want no hospitals. I didn't trust anybody. I was scared to go to hospitals, right? So they took me to a first aid station, and they put these butterfly switches on my leg here, stitches on my leg, and it worked out fine. And I was okay. Believe it or not, that's probably why they made me, after 4 months, being a cannoneer and a corporal, that's probably why they made me a supply sergeant now. I got upped in rank, right? And I was in charge of supply now for the next 8 months. And I had 2 South Koreans helping me in the supply. I was in charge of all the weapons, 45 caliber pistols, the grease guns, the 38 caliber grease guns, all right, that fired 16 rounds a shot. It looked like a machine gun, all right, with a handle, you pull it out, the thing comes up against your shoulder, and it's a black type of a gun here, and it's like a sawed-off machine gun. And I was in charge of that. I was in charge of the 32 caliber carbines. We had M1 rifles. I was in charge of all this. My job as supply sergeant was to order parts from the service battery, anything that we were low on, clothing, underwear, stockings, helmets, anything. I would order from there. One day, I don't know how it ever happened, whether somebody lost it or what, and there was a 45 caliber pistol that came into my tent. At the time it was a tent, and that pistol had no serial numbers on it. I says, oh great, I'm going to wear that. I'm going to take that with me all the time, Every time I ordered anything from service battery, I had a Jeep, right? And in this Jeep, I would take my 2 South Koreans with me and travel about, somewhere about 20 miles to our service battery to pick up any supplies that we need. Now, I was equipped with 2 45s, a 32 caliber carbine, and I had my grease gun. So, I mean, I was well protected with all my weapons, you know? But anyway, that was part of the job that I had, and I came out of the service with an MOS rating of Sergeant First Class, and that was because I made Supply Sergeant. But I rated because I had that accident, and I was still capable of doing my cannoneer work and all that, but maybe it's because I didn't want to go to the hospital or what, that they gave me this job. I don't know. But I did that, and so on. There's one more thing I'm going to talk about, and that was after about 6 months in Korea. Yeah, I had a lot of things happen over there, and a lot of distasteful things you've seen and so on. We had what they call a 1-week vacation. They call it Arada in Japan, mind you. And that was great. That's like the big city, okay? 1 week of Arada, except all of us soldiers in Korea didn't call it R&R. They called it I&I. I&I was for intercourse and intoxication. R&R was for rest and recuperation. But the fellows in Korea called it I&I, and they couldn't wait to go over there for that 1 week, right? But they said for $55, you could get some of these Japanese girls to take you all over the place. They live with you, they wash your feet, and do everything they want with you, and unbelievable. But being an old married man at 23, I did not indulge in that, naturally, because you heard too much of this disease business going on, and you didn't want anything to happen, so, and believe me, the urge to have sex over there in Korea was taken away from us because they kept feeding us these saltpeter pills. And saltpeter makes the old thing drop with no urge whatsoever. So they loaded us with that. I'll tell you, before we went to Japan, you know, maybe some of the guys didn't take them or what, or faked it saying they did and they didn't, you know. But that's what happened there. But anyway, in July of 1953, President Eisenhower declared a peace in Korea, all right? And that's when I got somewhere in August of near September of 1953, my 44 points had come up, and my 44 points said that I'd be able to go home and get out of this area. And so what they did is they ship you to Busan, which is the end line. I had a big Korean map that I had when I was over there showing where we were, what location. But I looked for it, I can't find it, and I was going to show it to everybody, but it's gone all these years, no wonder, right? But anyway, on the way down to Busan, all right, we had inspection over there, and what they do is they strip all the soldiers down completely, take off all your clothes here, soldiers, and anything you have in your duffel bags, empty it out, right? Anything that's government issue, you give back. You don't take with you. But I said to myself, I'm going to take this 45 caliber pistol without any serial numbers on it home with me. That's mine. There's no numbers on it. That's not government issue. I found it, and it was the truth. I didn't take any serial numbers on. There was no numbers on it. So going through Busan, the sergeant comes over to me and says, "What's that in your duffel bag?" "That's 45. I says, "Yeah, that's mine." He says, "That's yours?" He says, "What do you mean that's yours?" I says, "Sarge, there's no serial numbers on that. Take a look. On a magnifying glass, look, there's no serial numbers on it. That belongs to me." That's your personal 45? Yes, it is. He says, well, I want to tell you something. Soldier, do you want to go home, or do you want to stay another term here in Korea? I said, of course I want to go home. He says, well, why don't you do me a favor? You just leave this gun with me, and we'll send you home with a smile on your face. If you refuse, you're going to be back here again in Korea doing what you've been doing for the last year. Okay? I says, I'll tell you, Sarge, you keep the gun. I'll see you later. I'm out of here. Right? I'm out of here. And as I walk through that door, I says, boy, thank God someone up there is looking over me, you know? And sure enough, I got on that ship and I was on my way home. Now, in conclusion, I just want to say one thing. I held enough time for you. Our worshipful master asked me to make a little speech in Korea, and every time I talk about Korea, they are my brothers, but you people are my brothers too. Once a brother here, always a brother, okay? So I felt very comfortable in talking to my brothers, believe me. And sure enough, I'm going to show you this. This is a appreciation from the President of Korea on the 50th anniversary of Korea, and it's signed by Kim Dae-jung, President of the Republic of Korea. You read that, and it's very interesting. This is a copy of my outfit that I belong to, the Red Devils, the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion, in which I still belong to all the vets that belong to this, right? I pay my dues every year. We have a reunion. This year they have a reunion in Louisville, Kentucky. I haven't been to one of them yet. Someday I'm going to get there. But they have one this year in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay? And there's quite a few members still in this 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion, right? We used to go around with red silk scarves. That's why they call us the Red Devils, right? And we're quite an outfit. So it's on here. My name is on here, by the way. And if you look at that, and you're going to say to yourself, this is issued to Stanley J. Brenner. Well, J is for Jack, right? I go by Jack, but Jack is my Masonic name. I've adopted a Masonic name. Back in Massachusetts, there was a fellow down there that was a right worshipful, and he called me Jack all the time, my middle name. And I said, this is when I first signed up, 56 years ago. And I said, well, from now on, I have a Masonic name. Jack is my name, okay? But even the VA calls me S. Jack Brenner, okay? But if you notice, that's me, Stanley Jack Brenner, okay? All right, and you pass these around, and the worshipful and pass right along here, and just take a look at that. And there's one letter that I want to mention to you. I'm sort of happy about this. It came just a couple days ago from Kelly Ayotte, Senator Kelly Ayotte. I'm no hero, believe me. And this is not for me. It's for my unit, the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion. Okay? Let me just read this very quickly to you. Dear Mr. Brenner, as you may know, the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps and the Navy Department Board of Decorations and Medals has approved the addition of the 92nd Armored Field Artillery Battalion to the list of units recognized by the 1951 1st Marine Division Presidential Unit Citation. It would be an honor to present you with this award on Friday, June 27th in Manchester.
Wow.
So what it is, it's to support of the 1st Marine Division when they had that big push when the Chinese Reds came over, and the 1st Marine Division was outflanked in 3 areas, okay, by the enemy until they finally fought back with reinforcements. And we were part of that reinforcement to fight back, and they never did recover from the fight that the 1st Marine Division gave them back again. They pushed them back to the 38th parallel, in which General MacArthur wanted to go over, and over the 38th, but President Truman said, no, this is a stop right here. This is the end of the war, all right? But anyway, I'm sort of proud of that my unit, not me, but I'm part of it, so that's why I'm getting a Presidential Unit Citation. Thank you, gentlemen.